Greetings, my fellow from Love, Self, and Thinkers. This is LL3's News Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy mangroves of South Florida. And today's date, Sunday, January 7th, 2018. Hopefully everyone had a great New Year's and hope and pray that true peace, security, and spiritual prosperity will be coming real soon. Yes, I do say that in good faith. Yeah, I had a nice little wind chill in South Florida. So some people got ill, including myself, so I don't want to go around hacking away. But I'm getting better, which is a good thing. A little sore in the nose area. I'm at CJ's Java Lounge, located at 400 Southwest 1st Avenue, Suite 1, along the New River of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, within the New River Yacht Club, southwest section of the Andrews Avenue Bridge. Yeah, so it looks like everyone a little bit up in arms on our Lord and Savior, Attorney General Jeffrey Sessions, talking about marijuana enforcement and all this propaganda, fear, and raiding people, and all that good stuff. And I'll be very frank, I do see it as a distraction as well, because there's too much of an overabundance. And a lot of other things are happening, and they could just pass these certain bills right under our noses. Be vigilant across the board, my friends. That's one of the areas we have to really just focus on. But so I am going to be talking about our Attorney Clown General, Jeff Sessions. He's up there with Loretta Lynch and Eric Holder, etc. Yippee yappy and yahoo to be exact. That's right. And some people assume that I'm a Trump supporter and I said it. I'm like, what? I have my pros and cons with a lot of these individuals, putting down. But I'm not going to look at him as my Lord and Savior, like a lot of folks did with Obama and etc. I can go on, but I'll be digressing all day long. So, let's just take a look at this. On the U.S. Department of Justice issues memo on marijuana enforcement. Came out Thursday, January 4th, 2018, by the Department of Justice. As it reads here, the Department of Justice today issued a memo on federal marijuana enforcement policy, announcing a return to the rule of law and the rescission of previous guidance documents since the passage of the Controlled Substance Act in 1970. Congress has generally prohibited cultivation, distribution, and possession of marijuana. In a memorandum, Attorney General Sessions directs all U.S. attorneys to enforce laws enacted by Congress and to follow well-established principles when pursuing prosecution related to marijuana activities. This return to the rule of law is also a return of trust and local control to federal prosecutors who know where and how to deploy Justice Department resources most effectively to reduce violent crime, stem the tide of the drug crisis, and dismantle criminal gangs. It is the mission of the Department of Justice to enforce the law of the United States, and the previous issuance of guidance undermines the rule of law and the ability of our local, state, tribal, and federal law enforcement partners to carry out this mission, said Attorney Jeff Sessions. Therefore, today's memo on federal marijuana enforcement simply directs all U.S. attorneys to use previously established prosecutorial principles that provide them all necessary tools to disrupt criminal organizations, tackle the growing drug crisis, and thwart violent crime across the country. How lovely is that, right? Yeah, that's nothing really new at all. If I'm correct, the memo said the same thing on the PDF format. It did, yeah, it did. You can look that up. And it's interesting here. Where it says here, that was signed by Jeffrey Boy himself, the memorandum. The Controlled Substance Act. Congress has generally prohibited the cultivation, distribution, and possession of marijuana. 21 U.S. Code Section 801 has established significant penalties for these crimes. 21 U.S. Code Section 841. These activities also may serve as a basis for the prosecution of other crimes, such as those prohibited by the money and laundering statutes, the unlicensed money transmitter statute, and the Bank Secrecy Act. Title 18 U.S. Code Sections 1956 to 57, 1960, or 31 U.S. Code Section 5318. These statutes reflect Congress's determination that marijuana is a dangerous drug and that marijuana activity is a serious crime. In deciding which marijuana activities to prosecute under these laws with department's finite resources, prosecutors should follow the well-established principles that govern all federal prosecutions. Attorney General Benjamin Silvetti originally set forth these principles in 1980, and they have been refined over time as reflected in Chapter 9-27 of the U.S. Attorney's Manual. These principles require federal prosecutors deciding which cases to prosecute to weigh all relevant considerations, including federal law enforcement priorities set by the Attorney General, the seriousness of the crime, the deterrent effect of criminal prosecution, and the cumulative impact of particular crimes on the community. Given the department's well-established general principles, previous nationwide guidance to specific marijuana enforcement is unnecessary and is rescinded, effected immediately. This memorandum is intended solely as a guide to exercise of investigative and prosecutorial discretion in accordance with all applicable laws, regulations, and appropriations. It is not intended to, does not, and may not be relied upon to create any right, substantive, or procedural enforcement law by any party in any matter, civil or criminal. How cute is that, right? Well, my friends, you got to always see things different. I see things a lot different because one thing I know for sure is that when you got a lot of folks out there claiming that there's something and they're not, and in reality, they haven't really studied it. The man hasn't really studied his history, to be precise. So, I'm going to go through that in a moment, through the flow. However, is what Slate has to say about this. The latest came out a few days ago. Jeff Sessions is preparing a brutal crackdown on the cannabis industry. It is by Mark Joseph Stern. Attorney General Jeff Sessions on Thursday released a memo rescinding previous guidance on federal enforcement on marijuana prohibition, one which is couched in ambiguity and diffidence. It does not direct prosecutors to immediately crack down on the cannabis industry and states that have legalized pot, nor does it. Nor does it explain how the Justice Department plans to enforce the federal marijuana ban. Don't be fooled by his hazy reticence. The Trump administration is going to go after cannabis unless Congress stops it. Sessions will use his authority to intimidate, harass, and imprison thousands of marijuana users, growers, and distributors. Sessions' memo rescinds Obama-era guidance designed to let states experiments with legalization, but most notably, Sessions rescinded the Cole Memo, a document issued in August 2013 that directed federal prosecutors to focus on enforcement priorities: trafficking, drug driving, sale to minors, and states that legalize. That don't make any sense. Because I'll be honest, some of the states are doing stuff like drug driving, and sales to minors is prohibited within these 4 states. So I don't know what the problem is at. Like I said, the states can't take care of it, so we're going to do it for them. The Cole Memo provided a great deal of stability for the cannabis industry. So long as marijuana companies are compliant with state law, they could generally avoid federal prosecution. I don't get that at all. Okay. Since then, states that legalize have strived to remain Cole compliant by strictly enforcing their own marijuana laws. In summer, the governors of Colorado, Oregon, and Washington sent Sessions reports on their states' Cole compliance, providing detailed analysis, explaining and defending their regulatory scheme. Sessions responded with threatening letters, insisting falsely that these states were falling out of line with the Cole Memo. Yes, Your Majesty, what can I do? You may have another, right? At the time, Sessions appeared poised to crack down on the cannabis industry by alleging that states had grown overly lenient in regulating marijuana within their borders. In his letter to governors, Sessions wrote that the Justice Department remains committed to enforcing the federal ban on cannabis, a dangerous drug. You need to stop watching Reefer Madness. The guy's like mind controlled here, huh? He also noted that Cole Memo permits investigation or prosecution of the cannabis industry even when it complies with Cole. These words seem designed to reframe the Cole Memo as a flexible suggestion rather than firm policy. But Sessions ultimately did not decide to reinterpret Cole to allow more prosecution of the cannabis industry. He rescinded it altogether, who advanced warning abruptly withdrawing the safeguards that had allowed legal cannabis to flourish. Yes, his own memo suggests that individual prosecutors need not to emphasize marijuana-related charges. Look at a couple of dogs meeting here. They're barking away. That's all right. Oh, we're going to do the podcast at the coffee shop. Especially if it's pet friendly, because you never know. They're like, hey, buddy, what's your problem? You probably say someone farted. Okay. Oh, you have to expect that, right? Ha 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 ha. All right. One moment. All right, cool. Sorry about that. Thought it was the right piece. All right, it says here, yes, his own memo suggests that individual prosecutors need no emphasize marijuana-related charges, but the signal from the DOJ is clear as can be. The Attorney General is ready to see more prosecutions. Indeed, Sessions' timing was no coincidence. He almost certainly wished to send an ominous message to California, which began permitting recreational cannabis sales on January 1st. The state's marijuana growers and distributors will not have to contend with a precarious legal regime as they get legal reaction, production, and the sale off the ground. More broadly, Sessions will never inject a huge amount of confusion and uncertainty into the nationwide cannabis industry, which generated $6.7 billion in revenue in 2016 and employs as many as 230,000 people. Hey, man, we're going to create jobs that the states make a decision. Plain and simple. Can't rely on Washington do everything for them. Shoot. For us, come on. That's roughly 3 times more people than the coal industry employs. Investors may withdraw, banks may abandon clients in the industry, landlords may refuse to rent out spaces to distributors, employees may quit, fearing federal prosecution. Marijuana stocks have already plummeted, scaring away many potential investors that the industry needs to continue thriving. Time to buy. This collapse in the stock market, especially portentous, because the Justice Department has yet to issue a marijuana-related charge since the Cole's memo's demise. Stakeholders are clearly skittish, just like Sessions want them to be. When it comes, what comes next? Prosecutions. Big ones. 8 states and the District of Columbia have legalized marijuana for recreational use. In the light of state law and the Cole Memo, growers and distributors have made no effort to conceal their businesses. They're sitting ducks. Federal prosecutors can easily charge them with possession, distribution, even racketeering. How come they can't do it in Washington, D.C.? Pathetic, right? Absolutely. There's a lot of racketeering going on. There's idiotic politicians in there. Focus on them, please. Participants in the cannabis economic face decades in prison for doing their job. Prosecutors could also go after individual users who obtain their marijuana openly and lawfully, scaring customers back to the black market, which will undoubtedly prosper from Sessions' move. Congress can and should forestall these consequences in a few different ways. One, Congress can simply prohibit the DOJ from spending prosecutions who comply with state recreational marijuana laws. Yes, under Article 1, Section 7, I'm correct, of the Constitution. Congress has already done exactly that for medical marijuana, barring the Justice Department targeting marijuana users, growers, and distributors who follow state law. It could easily do the same for recreational cannabis as well. Second, Congress could reschedule marijuana. This update is long overdue. Currently, marijuana is a Schedule I substance along heroin. That's ridiculous. Schedule I drugs have no medical use and high potential for abuse. Neither of which is true for marijuana. A lower schedule for substance would lessen penalties and permit more medical trials. Third, Congress could repeal the federal ban on marijuana and leave the issue to the states while continuing to prescribe unlawful production and trafficking. The best long-term solution to America's cannabis conundrum, and will certainly happen within a decade, given that 56% of Americans should think the drug should be legal. Until Congress takes action, Sessions and prosecutors, many of them handpicked by him, have an extraordinary amount of power to paralyze the cannabis industry. If attorneys general did not plan to use that power, he could have kept Coe in place or modify his priorities. Instead, he restored the status quo from an area where only 2 states had legalized unless Congress stops it. Sessions is about to turn thousands of Americans into federal criminals. Well, easier said than done. If they take it to a federal grand jury, you can say no, shoot it down. If you're a juror in a federal case pertaining to this matter, you can still say not guilty, no victim, no crime. What Congress can do too is defund the whole thing on marijuana as a whole. Article 1, Section 7 of the U.S. Constitution. The House can defund. It's not that hard at all. But we all know too, because many people right now the GOP in certain states are split down the middle. Many of them are for states' rights, which is great. And we have to look at enumerated rights as well, which I'm going to be talking about that as we speak. But Sessions is in the twilight zone. That's how I look at it. He's just in the funny zone. There's just one thing. I was never crazy about him when as a senator of Alabama as well. So it doesn't matter if he's a Southern boy or anything like that. He's just a fool, a boss hog. You know, that's how I look at this guy. And one of the things we can look at here on civics, Annenberg classroom, okay, 9th Amendment. The enumeration of this Constitution, certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. The meaning is the 9th Amendment is a constitutional safety net intended to make clear that individuals have other fundamental rights in addition to those in the 1st through 8th Amendments. Some of the framers have raised concern that because it was impossible to list every fundamental right, it would be dangerous to list just some of them. For example, the right to free speech, the right to bear arms, and so forth, for fear of suggesting that the list was complete. This group of framers opposed a Bill of Rights entirely and favored more general declaration of fundamental rights. But others, including many state representatives, have refused to ratify the Constitution without more specific list of protections. So first, Congress added the 9th Amendment as a compromise. Because the rights protected by the 9th Amendment are not specified, they are referred as unenumerated. The Supreme Court has found that unenumerated rights, such as important rights as the right to travel, the right to vote, the right to keep personal matters private, and to make important decisions on one's health care or body. So the 9th Amendment, Sessions got to look at that too. He has an oath to protect and defend both the U.S. Constitution, right? So what he's doing right now, technically, is contradicting that in the way of consensual adults. I'm not saying like sell it to children or anything like that. Like give a child a joint. That's a totally different ballgame. Talking about consensual adults. Okay, so that's one of the areas that's why I'm very critical of this knucklehead. Okay, and here's the thing about the 10th Amendment. So folks can read from other parts of the world. It says here, the power is not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. Meaning, the 10th Amendment was included in the Bill of Rights to further define the balance of power between the federal government and the states. The amendment said that the federal government has only those powers specifically granted by the Constitution. These powers include the power to declare war, to collect taxes, to regulate interstate business activities, and others that are listed in the articles. Any power not listed, says the 10th Amendment, is left to the states or to the people. Although the 10th Amendment does not specify what these powers may be, the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled affecting family relations, such as marriage, divorce, or adoption, commerce occurs within the state's own borders, and local law enforcement activities are among those specifically reserved to the state or the people. So, another thing we can look at too, my friends, is Printz versus the United States, which pertains to the Brady Law, which became the reactivation of the 10th Amendment. And because the thing they used in here was the states were forced or had to implement the law but use their own money. So that's why the Brady Law in those areas is considered unconstitutional. A 10th Amendment issue. And I actually seen Sheriff Richard Mack spoke at an event in South Florida years ago. Really good man too. Really good guy, very very informative. So if you have a chance to see him speak, man, do it. You won't be disappointed. But those are the areas Sessions got to learn. He can't even be a lawyer. I don't think so. The guy's an ass clown, as far as I'm concerned. I treat him like Loretta Lynch and Eric Holder, just to give you, and Janet Reno as well. The Three Stooges and their sidekick. So that's one of those areas we gotta look at. And I'm gonna talk about a 10th Amendment issue later on in the program. But this is what Ron Paul has to say on CNN. I'm not crazy about the cable news network, but it's pretty interesting they brought him on the show. And it says here, about today, Alexandria King, Ron Paul, Jeff Sessions should be fired over marijuana decision. A lot probably may or may not know, he ran for president 3 times, 88 as a Libertarian, 2008 and 2012 as a Republican. And people call him the man with the tinfoil hat. Yeah, well, look what's going on. People listen to him more often now. It says here, Ron Paul, the former GOP congressman, one-time presidential candidate, called Attorney General Jeff Sessions to step down Saturday after he moved this week to rescind Obama-era policy of restricting federal enforcement of marijuana laws in state where the drug is legal. Sessions essentially shifts policy from the hands-off approach adopted under the Obama administration to unleashing federal prosecutors to decide individually how to prioritize resources to crack down on pot possession, cultivation of the drug in those states. Currently, recreational marijuana is legal in 8 states and District of Columbia. 22 states also allow some form of medical marijuana, and 15 allow lesser medical marijuana extraction. Paul told CNN Michael Semerkanish that Americans should have a choice on marijuana use, and he calls Sessions' actions unconstitutional. He represents something that's so un-American as far as I'm concerned, the Texas Libertarian said. The war on drugs to me is a war on liberty. I think we overtly concentrate on the issue on the drug itself, and I concentrate on the issue of freedom of choice, on doing things that are of high risk, he said. And we need to permit high risk all the time. Generally, we allow people to eat what they want, and that's very risky. We do overly concentrate on what people put in their bodies. Paul called the war on drugs a totally illegal system. Just because you legalize something doesn't mean everyone's going to do it. And then if you look at the consequences of the war, why don't people just look and read and study prohibition? A total failure. And the war on drugs is every bit as bad and worse, he said. More people should have the right or responsibility of dealing with what is dangerous. Paul insisted once you get into this thing about government is going to protect us against ourselves, there is no protection of liberty. However, he said he didn't expect Sessions to be successful. I predict Sessions is not going to be victorious on this, Paul told Smirkanish. And unfortunately, it is for reasons that I don't get excited about. It's because the states want to collect all those taxes on marijuana, so it becomes a tax issue, he said. And he's completely right. Because if you actually look at these laws, it does have those conditions. How much you can have if you're a resident, how much you can have as a non-resident. There's limitations. So he has a great point. And Father, Sessions got to go. He sucks as Attorney General. Be very frank. And doesn't matter what party he's in. Doesn't matter regardless. But one thing I got to do, I just got to laugh at these fools. And just one of those things, I know I'm ranting. He needs us more we need him. All right, fine. One of the things I'm going to look at is from the Mises Institute, the Mize Wire. Cannabis tax revenues will be a roadblock to Sessions' drug war. It came out on the 5th by Ray McMakin. Through November of 2017, the state of Colorado collected more than $226 million in revenues from cannabis taxes, licenses, and fees. There was a lot for state government with a total discretionary spending of about $10 million. This doesn't count tax revenues produced by industries that serve cannabis industries, but aren't cannabis business per se. Like other businesses, cannabis businesses also hire bookkeepers, lawyers, landscapers, janitors, and construction workers. In other words, cannabis employs people, produces tax revenue, and is as much part of the local economy as any other industry. The industry employs more than 30,000 people. What's happening in Colorado, though, is likely to be dwarfed by the new cannabis industry in California, where there are far more people, including many more millionaires and billionaires. Many of them will be likely instead making some money in the new industry. Mike Tyson, for example, has announced he plans to open a cannabis resource in the California desert. State government, of course, will be planning to cash in also. U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions, meanwhile, has decided to ratchet up his own personal drug war on marijuana, with which he has an odd fixation. Attorney General Jeff Sessions on Thursday rescinded a trio of memos from the Obama administration that had adopted a policy of non-interference with marijuana federal state laws. The move essentially shifts federal policy from the hands-off approach adopted under the previous administration to unleashing federal prosecutors across the country to decide individually how to prioritize resource to crack down on pot possession, distribution, and cultivation on the drugs in states where it's legal. One gets the impression, however, that on the matter the horse left the barn a long time ago. Even among Republicans, Sessions appear to be out left field on this matter. Colorado GOP Cory Gardner was clearly furious by Washington standards after Sessions' announcement, claiming that Sessions essentially lied to Gardner about his intentions prior to being confirmed. Gardner said he would retaliate, if necessary, by holding the Department of Justice nominees until the Attorney General lives up to the commitment he made prior to his confirmation. Meanwhile, the U.S. Attorney in Colorado says he plans to hold the status quo. State's Attorney General Republican Cynthia Kaufman also chimed in, claiming that Sessions' office blindsided her. I was saying there was no warning, Kaufman said during a news conference Thursday afternoon. We didn't know what this was coming. I don't think the U.S. Attorney's Office knew it was coming either. Basically, it's amateur hour at the U.S. Attorney General Office, and Colorado politicians are closing ranks against any charge to the current policy of cannabis tolerance. States want their tax revenue. Federal officials will have a tough row to hoe if they are planning on overturning state laws approved by the majority voters have legalized marijuana in the state. In Colorado, at least, opposition to federal meddling in state marijuana laws have become a bipartisan affair, although some Republicans have attempted to abolish local control in order to carry on the drug war with renewed vigor. Nonetheless, Sessions already lost an important battle back in May 2017 when Congress voted to give Sessions $0 to enforce federal laws against medical marijuana. Expect the most opposition to federal control, though, when there is money at stake, and this is why Sessions' efforts is likely to go up in smoke. This will be especially true when the economy begins to slow. After all, a similar battle ensued during the Great Depression after state and local revenue for alcohol sales dried up due to prohibition. David Beto has noted how property taxes rose significantly during the 1920s. This in turn led to a variety of tax-level tax revolts during the Great Depression. When these new taxes finally become too much to bear any longer, state governments and many others thus went to work on finally repealing the federal prohibition altogether, like Mark Thornton writes. The repeal of prohibition provided several significant victories to the tax resistance movement. The repeal caused the price of alcohol to plummet and allowed local, state, and federal governments to reinstate alcohol taxes and increase government revenues. State and local governments have also gained additional revenue via licensing fees and other local related charges. And federal alcohol taxes freed up additional money that can be provided to state and city governments through grants, public works, and other assistance. This revenue helped offset revenue lost from property tax cuts and tax limitation statutes. Additionally, repeal also reduced spending on enforcement of prohibition, reduced political corruption, and greatly alleviated and aggregate burden of crime. Maybe if the feds had somehow managed to block state legalization efforts, altogether states would not now be looking at lost tax revenue and lost jobs in case of a renewed federal war against cannabis. But the feds took little action, and those who now benefit from the new industry are unlikely to sit quietly while Sessions tried to carry out his lonely personal crusade. The Lone Ranger. Hi-ho, knuckleheads, away! That's Jeff Sessions for you. So, it's going to hurt, man. Money talks and BS walks, and this is why. It's doomed to fail, and it's done more than his pretentious wet dream. The deception continues. It's doomed to fail. Sessions, I recommend you recant or get the hell out, because we don't need any more turn-up buffoons like yourself. You're just part of the problem. So this is how I see the world. Be back. Okay, well, here's one little lesson that your local sheriffs can do. Here's a good example. It came out around July 2013. It's an archive written by Kelly Slotnick for the 10th Amendment Center blog. It's entitled Sheriffs to the Feds, You're on Notice. News outlet in El Dorado, California report that a county sheriff has stripped state law enforcement authority from the U.S. Forestry Service. Sheriff John D. Agostini made the move in response to a high number of complaints coming to his office. He will not go into detail about the complaints received, but he gave the U.S. Forestry Service plenty of opportunity to respond to the complaints. The U.S. Forest Service, after many attempts given many opportunities, has failed to meet that standard. The sheriff has sent a letter to the U.S. Forestry Service stating officers will no longer be able to enforce state law in his county. The U.S. Forest Service, after many attempts given opportunities, failed standards. Oh, I said that twice. That's standard. CBS 13 in Sacramento contacted a local professor to ask him if the sheriff's actions are legal. Looks to me as though the sheriff can do this, he said. They don't have state powers in the first place, but essentially sheriff can deputize individuals to have authority in his or her jurisdiction. Fact, federal agencies do not have state powers. Due to the constitutional structure of dual sovereignty, the feds have no authority to enforce state laws. Furthermore, states cannot be compelled to enforce federal laws. In 1994, the 10th Amendment was reaffirmed by the court when Sheriff Mack and Printz sued the Clinton administration. The opinion in Mack and Printz versus the United States stated, quote, the framers rejected the concept of a central government that would act upon through the state and instead designed a system in which the state and federal governments would exercise concurrent authority over the people. Federal government's power would be augmented immeasurably and impermissibly if we're able to impress into its service, and at no cost to itself, the police officers of the 50 states. Federal control of state officers will also have an effect upon the separation and equilibration of powers between the three branches of the federal government itself. Feds challenge the state authority all the time. FDA agents raid raw milk farmers at gunpoint. DEA agents nab drug dealers. ATF agents steal guns and sell them to cartels across the border. Even the IRS agents bust in SWAT style and take down tax evaders. All of these agencies are appointed and directed by the federal executive himself. And every single one of those federal agents needs state and local help. All these usurpations originated from the Prohibition era when the 18th Amendment was ratified and the Volstead Act was signed into law. You have seen a cliche a million times on TV. Hell, we have enough fictional cop shows. The feds come in trying to act all bad, grabbing jurisdiction. They do a little rooster dance, and local cops always back down. It's garbage straight out from Hollywood. Back before the Prohibition era, federal authorities would actually have to come in and ask sheriffs to enforce their federal laws or even state laws in the sheriff's jurisdiction. But when the 18th Amendment was ratified, it specified that the federal and state governments will have concurrent powers to enforce the ban on intoxicating beverages. Now the feds assume the state will just enforce any law. It comes with today, every activity with a black market has a little special federal task force waiting to stop you. One thing stands in the way, the sheriff. Now all states or counties have one, but the sheriff, an elected official, is usually known as the highest law enforcer of the county and has law enforcement powers exceeding that of any other state or federal official. The feds may have forgotten authority resides in the sheriff, but not tenthers. Just like in El Dorado County, California, sheriffs around several states are stated up against the feds. Their sheriff is one representative with enough spine to say to the feds, you have no authority here. As Richard Mack said, the county gives the federal government the authority to police exactly 4 areas: treason, piracy, treaty violations, and counterfeiting. The other 5,000 they have stolen and usurped from states and local authorities. The very people who have promised us they will protect and defend the Constitution are the ones who are destroying it. And there's a couple things you can do. I'll post this on my Spreaker page and beyond if I can, all right? What can you do? Work locally to nullify unconstitutional federal acts. 2, get the book Our Last Hope. Good book. Learn about the moral philosophical case for nullification. And 3, download Tenter Activist Toolkit. 18 pages. Things you can do to be successful supporting the Constitution in your area. Very good stuff. And this is true. That's how states' rights and the sheriff is the most powerful person in the county. So this is why, my friends, that's what I call balance of power. This is why the 10th Amendment shall prevail. I am not worried about Sessions. All you got to do is laugh at him. For every state in the union gives him the middle finger, what is he going to do? Nothing. Do yourself a favor, Jeffrey boy. Respectfully, be a grandfather. And go after the real ordeal, such as piracy, which is child trafficking, human trafficking, which is considered piracy. Okay? I will support you on that to the core. But in this case, you're null and void. And I say that respectfully. That's it. I thank everyone for listening, plus feel free to download and share us throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or you want to see something that's interesting you may want to check out, whatever you do, please address the correspondence with decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Freedoms Network, Minds.com, FutureNet.club, Patreon.com/Logan3rd. If you want to be my patron, donor, buddy, all that would be great. You hit me on Gab, gab.ai. Scene.life. I don't know what's going on with that, but hopefully it'll be fixed, and I'll say contact me there as well, but don't at the moment. You can email me at LookingLuck3@gmail.com, or to the encrypted ones, LookingLuck03@protonmail.com. All right, my friends, that's all for now. Once again, thank you for your time, but always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.